It's long been said that the people that we know and see placed in government positions aren't actually the ones making the decisions. Many who've been paying attention to the looming New World Order for years understand there is a shadow government, and if you know their names, they're likely not the ones pulling the strings. Well, Glenn Beck has shared the disturbing secret that President Bush told him years ago. The president isn't really the president. This in from The Blaze, it says, back during the 2008 election, Glenn Beck was summoned to the White House by then-President George W. Bush. In a profanity-laden rant, Bush, who was angry about Glenn's negative coverage of the Iraq War, excoriated him for suggesting that there were grounds to impeach him. Quote, "The first thing the president says to me is, a lot of people think they know how they can be the effing president. Well, they have no effing idea how to be the effing president," Glenn mimics in his best Bush accent. Earlier that day, Barack Obama, who was still campaigning for president, had said that if he were the current president, he would just bomb Pakistan. This is at the point where Pakistan is kind of helping us. They're not our friends, they're more frenemies, Glenn says. When he mentioned Obama's comment to President Bush, he responded with something Glenn has never forgotten. He said, "Oh, I heard that. Don't worry about that. Trust me, Glenn. Whoever comes into this office, no matter what party they're in, they're going to sit behind this desk and they're going to realize, because they're going to be advised by exactly the same people that have been advising me, that they really have no choice. This is what they have to do," Glenn recalls. When he left the White House that day, he was, quote, "freaked out. I was like, this is not good. The president isn't really the president. The president is just listening to all of these advisors who are advising the last president and the president before that," he says. It became clear to him that day that the deep state is just executing a long plan, regardless of who sits at the resolute desk. What difference does it make who we have in the office if that's true? Glenn asks. Now, the article says that Glenn has now chosen to bring up this old story today because it's becoming increasingly clear, it says, that President Trump has ended this trend of deep state shadow advisors running the country. And he gives an example of how on August 18th, during his meeting with Zelensky and other European leaders, quote, Donald Trump sat at the table and said, "I'm just going to get old Vlad on the phone." And he stood up, walked out of the room with all the world leaders and picked up the phone and called Putin and said, "Hey, I just want to keep you up to speed of what's going on," Glenn recounts. There are many people who feel this is the truth about President Trump. The quote-unquote conservative narrative is that no one tells him what to do. No doubt every president who walked into that Oval Office wanted to make a positive difference, at least to some degree. But as Glenn recounts, they were told, "That's not happening, buddy. You do as you're told." So how exactly has President Trump cracked through this, if this is in fact the case? He's obviously got senior advisors. Many people in the past have used the excuse that he's just got bad advisors. That's why Operation Warp Speed happened, for example. Bad advice, bad people around him, the swamp, the deep state, call it what you will. But which is it? Does he have advisors that he listens to or not? Or do we just blame bad advisors when he does something we don't like while simultaneously claiming he doesn't listen to these deep state advisors? He's still very proud of Warp Speed, by the way. Was it bad advisors that caused him to have dinner with Bill Gates last week, who said, with Trump at the table, that they're working together on gene editing? Or did he make that decision himself, ignoring these deep state advisors? Was it all just 5D chess bringing these bad actors to the forefront? I guess to support that claim, and this is what many on social media have been saying for months now, we'd need to see some arrests of said deep state Trump was going to be taking down. Maybe good things are happening in the background or behind the scenes, and we certainly hope they are. But the problem is that everything in the foreground does not seem to be resulting in anything tangible to support that particular theory. Now, this isn't to say it's all bad. There have been certainly positive things resulting from this administration. The closing of the border, the deportation of illegal immigrants, although many would like to see much bigger numbers than what's happening at the moment. The discussion around vaccines and reforms coming from HHS. However, we've also reported to you our concerns about RFK Jr.'s announcement of the NIH's universal vaccine, which was funded by Bill Gates. It's important to be balanced about these things, and as with any administration, we, and many, if not everyone, would love for them to actually succeed. And what does succeeding look like? Well, better living conditions, less crime on the streets, which admittedly the admin is doing something about, though many are questioning the process, lower inflation, better cost of living, youth being able to actually afford a home to start a family, more money in people's pockets, lower taxes, true prosperity, amongst many other things. I will leave it up to the viewer to decide whether these tangible things are within their current realm of experience. And when it comes to President Trump having or not having advisors, of course he has advisors that he listens to. They're well known to all of us. Are they the real advisors? If so, are people satisfied with the job they're doing? If not, who gets held accountable? Well, ultimately, the success of any country's leader comes down to trust, and we dare say that the system that George Bush described to Glenn Beck is essentially one that comes with a media spin to keep the trust of the people, while the puppet masters who actually run the country do their thing, and everyone is, year by year, worse off for it. At the end of the day, whether there are people working in the background, whether there are advisors or the president himself, the bare minimum requirement would be to put the country's interests, and only the country's interests, first.